Welcome back to Proxy, everybody. And today I got a little bit of a special treat for you. I got one of our community members on today, and I figured I'd do a little bit of something different for our next Dark Reaper video. We're going to be talking to a member of the community, a supporter of the channel, DeadofNight. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Proxy. How you been?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Been playing a lot of Dark Reapers lately in my list, and I think they're kind of underrated because, and I'm not just saying that because I'm the crazy guy who likes Storm Guardians. I really do like Dark Reapers, and I think I think they're actually good, man. A lot of people trash on. They say they have no place in the meta, but I actually disagree. I've had a couple of games against some opponents, and they've done some pretty solid things.
Yeah,
You know,
one of my favorite things about them is their ignore cover. I feel like it's a lot more valuable in 10th edition than a lot of people think. You know,
absolutely, man. Because you figure where your sources of ignores cover in the Eldar Index. There's only really one source or two sources, which is the Warlock on Jetbike, right, and
you know,
a Viper. And the Warlock on Jetbike only affects his own unit, and the Viper is kind of, you know, expensive. It's 85 points.
yeah,
So,
it's a squad of Reapers.
yeah, absolutely. And Reapers ignore cover by themselves. And the funny thing is about it is that, a lot of people have this complaint that AP minus one weapons are pretty garbage in 10th edition because of the cover rules and because of the fact that, basically everything's just negating it with cover. So you're getting your normal armor save anyway. So,
Yeah, that hurt. You see it hurting our shrieking weapons
oh, big
all the
time.
time.
Yeah, dude. I mean, last edition, our shuriken weapons were tearing through Space Marines. You didn't really need Dark Reapers because last edition it was like, why am I paying so many points for something that I can do more of with Dire Vendors or, you know, even Swooping Hawks?
Right, right.
Units that are just, not supposed to be as good at killing Marines, but as a matter of fact, they just were. They were better than it, better than Dark Reapers at it. And Dark Reapers now are actually pretty effective and pretty efficient at it because they ignore cover. So if Marine units in
Right.
cover, they're gonna have cover because there's, on modern boards, there's tons of cover everywhere.
Yeah, everything has it
Absolutely.
practically.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
if you look at their profiles, right? Like the Reaper launcher, it looks pretty underwhelming just at first glance, like, but that's a very efficient profile for something that's 80 points. Like if you look at it for, a unit of 5, strength 8, so it's wounding Marines on 2s. It's AP
yep,
minus 2, but it's ignoring cover, so you have to take that into account. So
it's a real AP minus two. Yeah.
yeah, it's forcing Marines to a 5 up normally, and it's doing 2 damage. So for every failed save, that's a dead Marine, which is pretty good, right? You have 4 of them in the unit. So I think, that's good. And then you have the option as well of the Star Swarm, which is good against single wound targets. So it's good at, taking out other Eldar.
Yeah, other
Right?
Eldar for sure.
Absolutely. Like, other Eldar, that's very prevalent in the meta. Like, it's not like back in the day where, you were the only Eldar player at your store and you never played other Eldar. Like, there's other people playing Eldar nowadays. So you might come across that, and what do other Eldar units rely on to get a decent save? Cover, you know?
It's the hardest. It's like the hardest chess match to playing the mirror.
Absolutely, dude. Like that's a hard matchup, the mirror. And then you have Dark Eldar, who, quite a bit more fragile, but also kind of rely on cover a lot of the times, especially on their vehicles. Their vehicles have a 4 up save. To get to that 3 up save, they need cover, you know? And they're
Right.
going to get
What
it because they're small, low profile.
one of my favorite things about the Reaper launcher too is the 48-inch range. I know it's like less prevalent this day and age, but still think it chucks. You know.
Oh, dude, absolutely. If you can shoot down a firing lane that your opponent doesn't expect because of your other army, a lot of weapons in your army, whether you're taking Shadow Specters or Swooping Hawks or whatever it is, they're going to max out their range at like 24 inches. So like your opponent's playing around the idea of that. D cannons are 24. Like a lot of our biggest threats are 24 inches. Fire prisms and bright lances are much more range, but those are anti-large, typically, anti-large platforms. So having a unit that's also good at just taking out infantry very efficiently is pretty awesome to be able to fire across the board like that. And sometimes your opponent's just not going to expect it. I've been able to use Dark Reapers through narrow line of sight gaps and actually catch my opponent off guard in the backfield. You know,
Right.
it's possible. And the other thing about the unit that I think a lot of people are kind of like overlooking or may think is a little bit weak is actually the Tempest Launcher unit, which is my personal favorite weapon. And let me tell you a story about the Tempest Launcher. I've always liked it, dude. Like, not just this edition, but I remember playing it back in 4th edition. And if any of you old timers out there remember Crack Shot, the Exarch power for 10 points,
Mm-hmm.
and you had the double blast template with the Tempest Launcher, and you could just place it wherever you wanted, and then, the Dark Reaper Exarch had excellent ballistic skill. And
Oh
you
yeah.
just put that template down. You could even guide the unit for that reroll of a scatter dice. And I remember setting it up sometimes, you know, blowing up somebody's transport. They'd disembark, they'd be all crowded up, and just blowing up the entire unit, like with those two small blast templates. Rerolls to wound, AP3, let's go, dude. And it was ignores cover too. So like, it was basically back then cover was like an invul save against range
Right.
attacks,
Right.
unless you ignored it, which Dark Reapers did. So it was like, see ya, get out of here. Killed everything, dude. Like everything, man. Even like Sternguard veterans, it didn't matter what it was. It was like Dark Reaper Exarch
It,
has
it's
got it
still
covered,
good. It's
and it's
still
still good
definitely
to this
still good.
day, dude,
Still good.
because it has utility, right? Like it's one of those weapons that has a lot of utility for the cost. You spend 80 points for a unit of Dark Reapers, and yeah, if you consider the whole unit, being valuable each and every turn, a lot of those Dark Reapers may not have good targets some of those turns, but the Tempest Launcher is always going to be able to shoot and always going to be able to put pressure on light infantry and even, take a couple wounds off of heavy infantry units. You know,
For sure.
it always
Yeah.
hits on a 3 plus too, like because of inescapable accuracy. So you're never having to worry about, debuffs to your hit roll.
I will say the kind of pitfall to it though is you have those other four Reapers that they don't shoot half the time,
Right.
which kind of hurts in my opinion, but it's still great because of that utility.
Yeah, it's like for example, and I mean I guess, if you did have two separate targets you wanted to fire at, you could do it, but in the early stages of the game when there's not a lot of line of sight
Yeah, they're
anyway,
hiding. They're hiding.
like
Yeah.
what are your units shooting at? Probably nothing. But that Tempest launcher is going to still be able to shoot. I've had it. Well, let me put it this way: I had a recent game against my Space Marine buddy. He was bringing the scouts, and they got a new kit and everything, just like the Striking Scorpions. And infiltrate up the board, get into a good position to screen to make sure that you can set up for your other more powerful units to come up the board later, your Terminators, your Aggressors, things like that.
Yeah.
And what's a great unit for countering scouts? Dark Reapers.
Oh yeah,
They're
for sure.
perfect because you have, especially when out of a Falcon, which I'll talk about in a second because it's kind of a funny little
Yeah.
combo you can do with it.
Oh yeah.
But you ignore line of sight, and then on top of that, you're ignoring their cover save, and scouts don't have a great armor save, so each one of your star shot missiles is punching right through. And if you can get plunging fire, it's just going to go right through armor. Like they're not going to get any save whatsoever, which is really good. You can kill probably about 3 scouts that way with the regular, Reapers, and if you're lucky, you can kill the other 2 with the Reaper launcher or Tempest launcher, I should say. Probably not all of them, but if you can whittle them down to one guy left,
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
shuriken
That's
cannon in
gravy.
your army can take it out. Which is really good.
Now, what about the Tempest launcher with a 10 pack? Do you still take it with a 10 pack?
I don't know if a 10 pack has the same role anymore. I think we're going into the territory of let's get out of a wave serpent. Let's combo this bitch up. Let's put him with, Manga Raw and let's have some fun. I think that's more of what that is. And I think that if you're going to go that route, you might as well go with the Reaper launch or the Eldari missile launcher, right?
Right.
Because you're getting that strength 10 AP minus 2 d6 damage. It's a little bit harder hitting. You have Manga Raw in the unit. You're hitting on a 2 plus instead of 3 plus, which is good. But
The strength 10 on that thing is good
it's
too.
strength 10 too. Yeah, so it's good against like kind
Eldar.
well Terminators too, right? Yeah, Eldar, yeah.
Yeah.
But like also it can take out a Terminator, can pop a Terminator on a 4 plus basically. If you think they missed their invul save and that's it, it's dead. It ignores
Yep.
cover, the Eldar missile launcher with the Dark Reapers.
Right, which is sick.
Yeah, because it's like one of those things. Like you don't think about it often, but it does push bigger models to their invul save, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I was saying the other day, not necessarily about the Eldar missile launcher, but you know, one of the big armies right now in the meta circulating around Dark Eldar, right? Like, what do we have that's effective against Dark Eldar transports? Well, we have a couple different things, like D cannons. We have things like, Shadow Specters, but Dark Reapers are actually cheaper than both of those units, and they can still, on average, kill a Venom that they have line of sight to, you know? Is
I
it,
think
and
even just the Tempest Launcher 5 pack gets their points
yeah,
value back throughout the game pretty easily.
absolutely easily, right? Like my strategy with Dark Reapers has actually been to not to use them with patience, right? Like set it up, fire the Tempest launcher every turn. Maybe you get a couple clears here and there if you're playing against an opponent that has light infantry in their army, Chaos Space Marine, something like that. You can kill the cultists with them, or you could just, I mean, sometimes I just like to use it to pop Dark Obscuration on cultists in the backfield just to burn that command point. They've already made up their value in one turn because I was able to force that player to realize, oh, I don't want to lose my cultists over the next 2 turns. I better pop that command point right now, right?
You're so right too about being patient with them.
Yeah, dude.
Definitely so many times, like they have missile launchers. You want to shoot the missile launchers,
Absolutely,
like
you
I
do.
just want to shoot my missile launchers. So yeah, sometimes putting them in places they shouldn't be.
Right. And then you
I'm
lose the
guilty. I'm
unit.
guilty of that for
I think
sure.
all of
Yeah,
us are, dude. I mean, I wanted to use the first time I played with these guys this edition, I did the exact same thing. I started moving them up the board turn one, up into ruins turn one, and my opponent saw them. He's like, I'm not gonna let that happen,
they're made of
and
paper.
just blew them away. And that's the thing is like, don't let the 3+ save fool you. Like they're paper just like any other elder, right?
Yeah, the
But
one wound.
oh yeah, dude. I mean, the level of fragility. I know Space Marines have a 3+ save, but they also got toughness 4. They also have 2 wounds. They're much tougher for the points.
In the past, will Reapers have a higher toughness?
That's Fire Dragons, I think you're thinking of. Reapers
Is
always
it
had
Fire
toughness
Dragons?
3, yeah. But Reapers used to move the same distance. You know what's funny actually is like back in the day, I'm talking the third edition codex, like pretty much every Eldar aspect warrior aside from Shining Spears had a 4+. Like there
Right.
was no 3+ aspect warriors because that just wasn't seen as Eldar, quote unquote. It was like, okay, the Eldar are the 4+ faction, you know, but they're also really fast. And like in the fourth edition codex when it came out, like units with a 3+ save typically didn't have the ability to use fleet of foot because they were considered slower, right? Like so
Yeah.
you have, I mean, so that was the trade-off. But now it's like it's a little different, obviously.
I feel like there's one more weapon we have to talk about, and I feel like there's only one real good scenario for the Shrieking Cannon.
Oh, the Shuriken Cannon, dude.
So I think
It's
the best scenario
lay it
is
on me, dude.
with the Magen Ra, like either 5 pack and a Falcon,
Yep,
or just
double
Magen Ra 10 pack. So you
double
got your
cannon, dude.
yeah.
I think it's, what's funny about that weapon is it's so classic, it's so cool of a weapon to have on Dark Reapers, like the Shuriken
But this one
Cannon with
ignores
like the,
cover too, which is neat.
yeah, it does. It's kind of cool. Like, I think it still sucks. I'm gonna be
No,
real,
yeah,
but
no,
I
yeah.
think
I
it's
was trying to
fun.
give you my fringe scenario.
Well, what do you think it's better at than like let's say the Reaper launcher, like or the Eldar missile launcher?
I guess maybe you get the 3 guaranteed shots.
Yeah.
We're gonna be within 24. We're always hitting
Yep.
on 3, so you can move, do whatever you gotta do.
I guess it's better at cleaning up things like scouts, right? Like multiple
Yeah,
wound
clean up the
light infantry.
scouts. Yeah, it is less
Yeah.
strength, but you got your 3 shots
Yeah, it's gonna wound on 3 still. You're still
and
getting a
sustain
reroll to
hits.
wound.
So
Yeah.
you could
True.
use your cheeky fate dice or whatever you need if you have to.
That's kind of interesting. Sure. Yeah, why not? Like, yeah, I can see that working, and I can see that especially working in like really small games. Like if you're playing a 500 point game with somebody, and like they're running like combat patrol, or they're running like scouts or something. Like, yeah, I'll bring your shuriken cannon. That's like a little clutch weapon that may come in handy later on when I'm trying to kill your
Yeah, or
scouts or something.
yeah, you play Assault Reapers, so you got 3 by 5 Reapers with all
Yeah, dude.
three have shrieking cannons.
Dude, I mean, whatever, that's cool. I
That's 9
mean,
shrieking shots.
yeah, dude, that is nine shuriken cannon shots, dude. I mean, you can technically
Ignoring
get that on the
cover.
Wind Rider, but it does ignore cover, so that's cool. I just think, obviously, what's funny is like, I've always thought this too. Like, you have the Dark Reapers, and usually, like, the Exarch weapons are, like, really, like, they're different, right? But with Dark Reapers, it's
Yeah,
weird because, like, they don't have a unique, like, two of their weapons are not unique, right? Like, Shuriken Cannon, not unique. Eldar Missile Launcher, not unique. You can find that elsewhere in the army. The only unique weapon's a Tempest Launcher, but if you look at, like, every other Aspect Warrior, it's, like, pretty much all unique. Like, right? Like the Howling Banshee Exarch, unique weapons.
right.
Like Striking Scorpion, unique weapons. Like Fire Dragon Exarch, unique weapons. Dire Avenger Exarch, unique weapons. You look at Dark Reapers and it's just like missile launcher, shuriken cannon. And that's because of the classic models that you see. Dark Reapers
We're
rocking.
missing an Exarch melee weapon too.
I know, dude. Where's that Web of Skulls, dude? We need that back. We need the Web of Skulls. Like I legitimately think if the Reaper launcher, you could take a Web of Skulls with it. I mean, the model's holding a skull, you know?
Right,
So
right.
that would be tight. Like, instead of, taking the Tempest launcher, you could take the Reaper launcher and a Web of Skulls. And it could be like a second ranged profile, but it's also like a melee weapon kind of, you know?
Yeah.
Like you could fire the Reaper launcher and the
Like
fucking Web of Skulls,
a weird flamer
throw a
shot.
skull at him. Oh yeah, dude, absolutely, dude. Like D3, like anti battle shock. I don't know what you give it. Hit a freaking
GW's gonna
skull
listen
at
to you
somebody, dude.
eventually.
Yeah, dude. Like throw a fucking skull at somebody and like hits them in the head, and they have to take battle shock.
Just hit him for mortals.
Yeah, dude, that'd be cool too. That's a cool idea, dude. Like no, I really like that idea of the Web of Skulls. I thought it was a cool weapon back then, back in the day in the third edition codex, and then they got rid of it, and it was just such a shame to me. Like my young self was just like, no, where's the Web of Skulls?
Right.
Like, even though it sucked back then too, it was terrible. Oh my
Well,
god, dude.
just like when they brought Eldritch Storm back for 9th edition, I was so pumped because it was
Oh,
so
dude.
nasty when it
Oh,
first came out.
that was so nasty. The brutalization you could pull off with that thing with multiple psychers like involving themselves in it was absolutely horrendous, dude.
It was unreal.
It was so good. I mean, nothing compared to like the Eldar of like the beginning of this edition, but like yeah, that was strong. That was strong. You had a lot of weird shit in
What,
ninth edition.
what do you think about Mog and Ra with these boys as a 5 or 10 pack?
I think he's cool. I think his only drawback, I mean, if we scroll down to Morgan Raw, scroll down to the old Morgan Raw here. I like the model and everything. I just think he's really expensive, Like if you look at what he does. Here he is. If you look at what he does, his weapon is cool. Like 6 attacks with devastating wounds, ignores cover, like and that's pretty good, Like, but then he has AP -1. You're like, what, dude? Like AP -1 with a Phoenix Sword?
Right,
Like you'd think he'd be AP
right.
-2 there. Strength 7 is a really bad profile because it's not quite enough to wound on twos against Marines, but it's also at that point where it's like, okay, it's also not strong enough to like deal realistic damage to vehicles either. Like, so it's a little bit awkward. Strength 7.
For
Like
sure.
strength nine's a lot better. I feel like I feel like it should probably be the strength of an autocannon or something like that. The thing I like about him is, obviously looks really cool, and his ability is decent. If he makes an attack at a target at low, below half strength, gets to reroll his hit roll and wound roll. I think the wound roll is
It
obviously
is
the
gnarly.
important part here. Like the hit roll, he's hitting on twos. And yeah,
It does make them somewhat accessible to shoot at anything though.
right. Yeah, pretty much, right? Because he has devastating wounds, so you could fish for those devastating wounds. My problem with him is that he also should have had sustained hits. Like it's Shuriken
Yeah.
Cannon at the end of the day. Why doesn't it have sustained hits?
It's not even it's the Mog Eater that we're talking about.
I know, dude, but it's a giant Shuriken Cannon, man. It needs those
No, no,
sustain.
I know it's the Mog Eater.
Yeah,
Like
dude, you need to make it good. Like I think GW's for some reason really afraid of making this guy a powerful ranged, behemoth, but yet they're okay with the Death Jester having sustained hits three, dude. Like I don't get
So
that logic, but
Morgan Ra with the 5 pack of boys and the Falcon.
I think they can do a lot of damage, dude. Because especially turn one, right? Like you can do the whole transport shuffle where you have them start out in the Falcon, you have a unit of fire dragons behind. They get out, they disembark 3 inches, they move up 2 stories of ruins because they have movement six, and then
Yeah.
they, get their plunging fire and rolls to wound against something, and then you just hop the fire dragons in after, and you could definitely do that. That's a viable tactic. Um, the only thing is that obviously it hinges on your opponent not going first and having indirect fire, which would really suck to just lose a unit of fire dragons like that. And it also
I
hinges on your opponent moving up.
I see. I've played them in the 10 pack too, and I did enjoy that a lot. Just hitting on twos with Dark Reapers feels real good.
Yeah, and
Anytime
it's
you're hitting on
fun,
twos
you
feels
know.
so good.
Oh, single shot weapons hitting on twos and you have enough of them, or it's really cool because you have a lot of value there, and like, points aside, cost efficiency aside, it's just fun, dude. Like it's
For
just fun
sure.
to run a ton of Dark Reapers. And I think for the first time in a long time, Dark Reapers, you can actually run a bunch of them and be fairly successful with them. I know it doesn't seem like it, if you're talking
Well,
about really competitive play, like you probably don't want to do that, but just in, even semi-competitive games, I think running 3 packs of Dark Reapers is kind of wacky, but it can work.
kind of like it's kind of like running like your 3 by 5 fire dragons or whatever.
Right.
Same kind of points. If they die, you don't feel too bad,
Yeah, it's like a who cares moment. Like it's 80 points, you know. They have indirect fire. They can put a lot of pressure on units in the meantime.
and maybe they'll be scoring you points.
Yeah, dude. True. They could. They could very well. I mean, they're a little low on the movement side, but they can still advance and they can still, fire and fade and all that stuff. They're cool. Now, the other cool
Oh,
thing is that
fire and fade
actually,
with the 10 pack,
yeah, you could fire and fade the 10 pack, dude. Move that extra, 6 inches.
up and down the building, huh?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, the other thing is I wish Dark Reapers had movement 7 because it would make it so much easier to, like, actually do that and pull that off because as it is now, they will not be able to fully move out of line of sight after getting up there. So they're kind of just stuck there, which, you know, it, the thing is like when GW had them at movement 6, I was like, okay, well, there has to be some sort of trade off, right, to having movement 6, but there's
Yeah.
not. It's like if you look at their stat line, like, okay, like for example, let's look at Banshees, right? Banshees, movement 8. What's the trade off? 4 plus save.
Yep.
That's the trade. They're fast. They can get in combat quickly, but they have that 4 up save. Striking Scorpions have 7 movement. They have the 3 up. The trade off is they have infiltrate, right? They have another way to get into combat. They can't advance and charge. So they're a little slower, but they have that infiltrate. Fire Dragons, even 3 plus, movement 7. Why are Dark Reapers movement 6? Right?
They're lugging around the missile launchers, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like that shouldn't really impede their movement. Like, I mean, look at the weapon that the Fire Dragon Exarch is carrying. He's carrying like a big fire. I mean, that thing is twice the size he is. He's bigger than him. Look at that thing. It's going
Yeah,
off
that's
the picture.
but
That's
that's why they call him
massive.
That's why they call him Daddy.
He's a special guy, dude, with that big thing. Shoot.
What
Damn.
about the So my one other idea with excuse me with Morgan Raw is honestly like it's super ridiculous, but just him and and a bunch of death jesters and a falcon,
Like the Death Jester, like, bomb,
just to
dude.
trigger the dev wounds. Yeah,
Sure, man, you could do that. You could even have Condrus in there too. Let's bring all of them together. Let's put a Solitaire in there. Let's do a full
right.
character bomb, dude. Let's
There you go.
do Solitaire, Gondrus, 3 Death Jesters, and Magan Ra. Let's do it. Just a full freaking boat of characters, dude. I think that's funny, dude. I think that would just wreck things if an opponent didn't know how to counter that. It would just be like Solitaire goes after something, kills it. Magan Ra kills something. Death Jesters kill something. Cahandros goes after something, kills it, like just
That'd be really
devastating wounds.
awkward. That'd be really
Oh,
awkward too.
that would be insane, dude. If you could kill like, 5 different things in one turn, you know?
I feel like at that point you also run the Incarn
That's so many points, dude. I mean, like, but it's funny, right?
in their
Like
back line.
if you could get there, dude, with a Falcon, like, I guess you know what you could do though now is you could deep strike it, right? Because you could just disembark them after. Now you can't assault, but
You can shoot.
you could shoot. So like, you probably wouldn't want to take a Hondros or the Solitaire in that combo,
So
but you could definitely take
you put
others.
the melee tunes in a different bus.
Yeah, split it up, split it up a little bit, dude. That's cool. Yeah, that's funny too. That's a funny way to play.
Do you think Dark Reapers kind of have a like a Alpha Strike sort of capability these days?
Well, it just
Like
really depends. Like if you're running like a
they have the
triple
range,
Dark Reaper,
like
like it just depends on where your opponent leaves open. Because I know like some opponents will underestimate them, and you'll be able to like take out a unit turn one with them. Like if you're running a lot, but I think there's just too much toughness in the game for them to be able to do it, and I don't think they're really meant for that anyway. Like you know, I mean like think about it. In a normal scenario where you're going against someone like Dark Eldar, like a Dark Eldar player isn't gonna just leave their transports out in the open unless they're really new to the game. So like you could definitely, 3 units of Dark Reapers. If
yeah.
there's 3 Venoms out in the open, those 3 Venoms are dead. Like big mistake on the Dark Eldar player's part. But at the same time, a good player won't have them out in the open.
I know we talked a lot about the Falcon as kind of a combo unit.
Yeah.
I think Shroud Runners too are pretty
Oh, dude, big time. And I thank you for
interesting
reminding me of
with the
that.
Reapers.
Oh, it's great, dude, because, Reapers, I think one of the things with their Star Swarm is they have trouble wounding like tougher targets. Like, so like if you have a target with low armor but higher toughness value and you need to kill that, like obviously you're going to want to go for the Star Swarm against lower armor stuff, but you run into that issue of, oh, it's strength 5, right?
Yeah.
The lethal hits kind of offset that just a little bit. I mean, you're not getting that many lethals, but it's also decent for the Tempest Launcher, right? Because you have blast, you have indirect fire, so it does improve their damage against stuff. And here's the thing, like for anybody out there thinking like, okay, the Tempest Launcher is just okay. Like it's a blast weapon that has 2d6, but against infantry swarms, like if you're going against Tyrannid, for example, like it just destroys
Yeah, you want
Tyrannid.
that.
Like yeah, absolutely, gargoyles are just utterly annihilated by it. Like your opponent has 10 gargoyles, that's 2d6 plus 2 attacks. You're getting 9 attacks with that thing, hitting on a 3 plus. It doesn't matter if, they're out of line of sight or not, you're hitting on threes, and then you're ignoring their cover. So, or excuse me, no, not on the Tempest Launcher, but they're getting a cover. It's AP -1. It's negated. They're not getting a good armor save against it, so you can kill like a majority of that unit in one turn. You
I
know?
also I also think we talked about this a little bit before. Like we're probably going to start seeing Eldrad more,
Yeah.
right? So
+1
Eldrad with
remove.
Dark Reapers as well.
Yeah,
Just
dude.
dooming with Dark Reapers is nasty.
Oh, absolutely. Because now their strength 8 weapons are wounding everything on the game on 5 plus or 4 plus, excuse me. Right? Strength 8. I mean, unless it's like toughness 17, which is or toughness 16, which it's not going to be.
Right,
Right?
right.
So you're wounding on 4 plus. If you did that
With
Falcon
ignore
shovel,
cover,
yeah, with ignore cover, yeah, dude,
AP 2 damage.
yeah, and you can even climb up the ruins turn one. I mean, technically speaking, if we're thinking of like their ability to pop a transport or something like that in the midboard that like comes screeching into the midboard to like try to hold an objective down or something like that, with Eldrad's Doom, it's not bad, dude. They're wounding on
Right.
fours. If they climb up the ruin with that Falcon trick, they're rerolling their wounds. They're plunging fire. Like there's situations where a Dark Reaper unit can trade considerably up against their opponents, right? Like
Yeah. Back to
AP
playing the
minus
old
three.
Eldar way.
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. Like if they don't make that 6-up save with the transport, like let's just say it's like a Rhino, like your basic Rhino. Yeah, Rhinos aren't expensive, but neither are Dark Reapers. So if you're able to get 3 wounds out of 4, and they have a 50-50 of failing all of them, that's 6 wounds. That's half of a rhino or more just gone, right?
I I feel like they could
It's
be
not
so
bad.
good too. They're so good too. Like, okay, there's 4 wounds left on this dreadnought or tank.
Hmm.
I probably could have a decent shot, especially between with combos slash fate dice to like pick off the rest of those wounds with even just a
Well,
five
well,
pack.
yeah, and you don't have to waste a bright lance on it, right? Like you don't have to
Right.
use your warwalker. You don't have to use any of your anti-large weapon. Like you don't have to burn a fire dragon unit on it to try to kill it or a falcon on it. You could just pick it up with Dark Reapers. Like Dark Reapers
Wh-
fit in that area of can finish things off, like they're kind of like lower on the toughness end, like really well, you know?
What's super cool too, like I don't know the missile launcher. I run that a lot, and
You know,
I think
it
it's like a
might not be
it's a it's a,
bad.
it's a pseudo poor man's Bright Lance
Yeah,
because it's practically AP3.
right, against units in cover. Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, it's a
So
little less
like,
damage. So like that's kind of how I view it.
yeah, and you're never having to
In
suffer a hit
in my cheap
modifier.
in my cheap little Dark Reaper squad, I
Oh,
got like kind of
absolutely.
a
And
little secret Bright
I
Lance.
mean, that's cool though, because you know that you're onto something there because a lot of opponents have smoke, right? A lot of Imperial opponents have that smoke keyword. They're going to pop smoke. They're going to be a -1 to hit, and they're going to get cover. And guess what? Reapers don't care about either of those things. They don't care
True.
about the ballista skill. They don't care about the cover. Oh, thank you that you popped that command point. I'm ignoring it,
Yep.
right? Which is great, which makes them a great finisher. It's like, you know, 2 Bright Lances, is that going to be enough to kill that, ballistic dreadnought that's in line of sight? Maybe, maybe
Yeah.
not. But if you can get 8 wounds on it with a fate dice, you can finish it off with Dark Reapers, you know?
Kind
Of
of when I build
unless you
my
rifled them, which happens.
kind kind of when I build my lists, right? So like I'll have like a big squad of something. So we'll say like nine pack of Wind Riders, for example. I know in my mind this is going to be like my hard damage unit. Okay. A lot of my other units, okay, are like swooping hawks. They're chip damage. I, Dark
Right.
Reapers, I think, kind of fall under the chip damage thing in the 5 pack. But do you think they can fill that damage role as a 10 pack?
Well, I think as a 10 pack, they're much better at it, but they're also a much bigger target, right? And like, my thing is, if you're going to run them in a 10 pack and you're using them for that, you might as well just run them in two 5 packs, you know? Because then you
Right.
get the extra missile launcher, you get the extra Tempest launcher with it,
And you get to be split up.
right? And you get more rerolls and stuff like that, which is just what you want, I think, in an Eldar army. But,
So
if
the
you
consensus is like 3x5 or
three
just
by,
running
that's what
five
I
packs
would
in
do.
general.
Yeah. I'd run just 3x5 always. If I
On the
was being
extreme,
competitive,
on the extreme, what happens when you run 30?
30. You roll some dice and you have fun and
Uh,
you just have a blast just blasting away at Marines in the midboard. That's basically it. I mean, they trade
that's
well
gotta be
against
cool.
Marines.
That's gotta be cool.
Yeah, I mean, you know what though? The funny thing is they're kind of cheap enough now where you could do that with like wave serpents and stuff and like justify it by saying like, well, the unit's only 20 more points than a unit of Dire Avengers and like they hit harder against Marines in cover than Dire Avengers do. So like I might as well do that.
Right.
Because they kind of do. I mean, like Dire Avengers, I think they're a decent unit, but I think what Dark Reapers have that they don't is again they have the AP values to take out Marines, right? Ignores cover AP -2 is going to be much better than just AP -1 without ignores cover. Always, you know.
I, I I I really think 2 damage isn't as bad too as it appears to be.
Yeah, damage 2 is good, dude. Like, Dark Reapers, their previous incarnation had damage 3 and damage 2 Star Swarm, but the problem with them was they were so expensive. They were just trading down against almost everything in the game, right? Like damage 3 against Terminators, it was like, well, like you might kill a couple Terminators, but then they're still dying and you're paying 140 points. So if you kill even just like maybe you kill one Terminator on average, you're still
Right.
not reaching that level to where you can actually say they're trading effectively. you know? Like that was their issue last edition, and that's why I think they were really like they deserve their reputation for being bad, for sure.
Yeah, well, they've done a lot of naughty in their day.
Yeah, they have, dude. The Dark Reapers have been dirty, dude. That's why I mean, that's why they've been kind of ups and downs. They've had their ups and downs over the editions because they used to be really nasty. It was funny because I remember in fifth edition when the rules changed regarding templates and stuff like that, and when the meta changed to be more mechanized, Dark Reapers were actually considered one of the worst units to pick because they had no ability to take out tanks. But in
Mm.
some games, I actually found them to still be useful because they were good at picking up 5-man units of Blood Angels, and they were good at picking up like 5-man units out of destroyed transports. So sometimes I would just take a unit of 5, everything else would be mechanized, and they were small enough where I could just hide them behind a building, player place terrain. I could just hide them behind my like one building, and I have all my wave serpents and stuff like that, and it would be like, all right, well, I'm plugging, maybe one Razorback a turn or whatever, and like you're gonna lose that 5-man unit inside each and every time. Whereas if I was playing a conventional Eldar, mechanized list in fifth edition, where I was just playing Wave Serpents, Dire Avengers, Fire Dragons, and a single Farseer, and just 3 prisms, and just that was my cookie cutter like Eldar competitive list.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily be able to pick up that 5-man unit effectively, you know, and I know that Dark Reapers were heavy support and that took away from a Fire Prism, but what I used to like to do is I used to like to run 2 Night Spinners and a unit of Dark Reapers. And that was like 3 indirect fire units. The Night Spinners were really good at slowing down vehicle parking lots, and Dark Reapers were good at like picking up that like unit that you killed out of a transport. So I did that a lot, and that was
Mm.
like an effective tech that I came up with that kind of like really like threw a lot of meta chasers off their game. Because they're like, oh shit, like I can't like just rush this unit forward onto an objective anymore to like tie you up or anything like that. Like I'm gonna have to move my vehicles. I can't just leaf blower you off the board.
I,
But
I playing the Reapers on foot. I've played them with like dragons on foot as well. I
yeah,
find I really find dragons to be a good like supporting unit to
interesting.
Reapers on foot.
So like what do dragons move forward, kill a
It just
transport, and then reapers like move forward as well and kind of clean up?
well, yeah, you kind of do things like that, but also like just opponents are kind of scared of the dragons, so they
Right,
don't want to get close because they know with that punch that they have.
right.
So it kind of like gives you that little safety bubble for them. It's
Interesting.
just
So you're saying
interesting.
like
Interesting field hand moves.
right. Oh yeah, for sure, dude. For sure. When you're running the dragons on foot, do you run them with a fire pike still, or you run them with the
I
fusion?
know. I go with fusion gun.
Okay, interesting for the advance.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's common. If you are running them on foot, probably best to just go with the fusion gun, just for that
They
extra threat.
they usually die hard, but they usually pop
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, because
And
they're
that
only
yeah,
85.
we want
Yeah.
that threat range.
Yeah. It's funny, with the amount of MSU aspects we're seeing now, like, Shadow Specters, we're seeing, Hawks and all those units, Warped Spiders, just being run in like huge numbers. I think Dark Reapers are overshadowed, but I think they're actually really underrated. I really do. I think they have a place in the meta. Against Necrons, they're even good. I mean, like they can take a few wounds off of Canoptic
Yeah,
Wraiths.
I think the sweet spot is definitely the 5 packs.
Yeah,
Even if somebody wants to just run one 5 pack, like there's no reason to be afraid of that. They look cool as fuck.
yeah, and
Put
they're
put
not
them on a
expensive.
table.
For sure.
Yeah, put
Like
them on
I
a table.
think a lot of players get the hang up like when they see competitive lists and tournaments being run and they don't see a unit like or there's a consistent pattern of not seeing a certain type of unit. That doesn't necessarily mean that the unit can't work in a competitive list. It just means that in their particular list they didn't need it, right? Like it
No, you
wasn't
just gotta play it
necessary.
and learn it. You gotta
Yeah,
learn that.
but you could fit it in and it could just be something that you have in your list. And like for me, for example, and I'm not saying this is the case for every player, but for me, Dark Reapers have actually been good because a lot of my opponents like to use units like scouts and they like to infiltrate and try to control the board, which is why I'm big on units like Rangers You know, like I really like Rangers. Why? Because they prevent infiltration, right? If you
Right.
can get the deployment first, their scouts are not going to be deploying in positions that can really hurt you if they get first turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge like thing for Eldar lists in general is like, what role does this unit play for me
Yeah,
in my list? And especially all of our aspect warriors, they're pretty kind of specific in what they do. So, okay, I need anti-tank. Okay, well, we could maybe look at Reapers or Fire Dragons. Is that ideal for your anti-tank role? Probably not.
right. Well,
But against like the Terminators and things like that, we could look
sure.
at these guys as good value instead of using, I don't know, Night Spinner or what have you.
Right. Well, you know what's funny is like, and I was just talking about this on the Discord probably like 2 hours ago was, well, not the role, sorry, the kind of ascension of Custodes, right? Like Custodes are all of a sudden good again. They got their feel no pain against devastating wounds back. Custodes players aren't in the corners like, crying and sucking on their thumbs, they're back in action. A ton of players are coming out and playing them in tournaments and stuff again. And if you think about it, Reapers are actually pretty decent against them too, because a lot of their models are for wound,
Right? That's
which
two
kind of
damage.
fits. It's like one of those things. Like typically, Eldar players don't take Shuriken cannons. Well, Shuriken cannons are actually decent against Custodes, but the problem is that AP1 rarely gets through unless you have Ignor's cover. So instead, you got Dark Reapers now, AP -2 plus Ignor's cover, no matter what, is going to put Custodes to a 4-up save typically, unless they're using stratagems and stuff like that to boost their armor. In which case, great. Thank you. Yes, use your command points against Dark Reapers, and then
I,
that gives me the leverage to go after another unit on the other side of the battlefield. Like you pick your poison, right? So like 4 Dark Reapers shooting at a unit of Custodes, typically you can pick up 1 Custode, right? A turn. Like that doesn't seem like a great amount, but for 80 points, that's
yeah,
pretty decent.
yeah.
That's pretty decent. And like not a lot of aspect warriors can do it except for fire dragons.
What's so neat too is like they're so cheap.
Yeah,
Like, and if you pair it with like say our Shroud Runners are super cheap too for what they
yeah,
do.
true.
So they're just value units.
Yep, you get
Like
those auto
you
wounds.
just build an army of value units.
Oh,
You
big
know.
time, dude. Absolutely agree with that. Yeah. Like, and I think that's the way to play Eldar going forward generally is with more aspects and stuff. I've seen Wraith Blades, like, obviously work in tournaments, which makes
Yeah.
sense, in certain lists. Like, you do need something to kind of, like, push the envelope in the midboard, or else your opponents just kind of take the primaries and just whittle the or just kind of survive as best they can and score a bunch on primary, and then you're like, oh well, I didn't score any on primary, so I lost the game.
Right.
Even though I like dominated the battlefield and killed a bunch of their stuff, like I still
Yeah.
lost because I couldn't control those objectives. Well, you know like that's why you have units like Wraithguard or Blades, I guess. And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know
we're definitely gonna have to go back to like the toolbox days, which I think is
yeah,
super neat though.
which is cool because like early on in the edition I really didn't like the Wraith Knight hype. Like I really didn't like it because in ninth edition I was like pro Wraith Knight, man. Like I was thinking like, I'm gonna run 3 Wraith Knights unless I even like, proxied Wraith Knights and ran them and did a video on them because I thought it was so cool. And they weren't good. And, you know, when Wraith Knights were good again, it was it was fun for about 10 minutes until you realize what you're
Yeah, you're
looking
like,
at. You're
oh,
like, oh, okay, they kill entire units of Terminators in one turn from across the board. Oh, right. Like
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, well, you know it's bad when they have to emergency errata rules.
right, of course. Well, I mean, they might do a data slate for Necrons because they're looking really strong for no reason. Like
Right.
Satan shards are like out there like just basically busting people over the head with the amount of toughness they are. That's super hard to kill. You know, like the only thing that can kill them is Custodes because they have the Trajan Valorous BS where they can like ignore modifiers and stuff.
Nah, we just need to run 3x3 Shroud Runners, and then our whole army kills everything.
Yeah, see, that's
I
well,
think I think
yeah,
that's the
man.
goal.
Shroud Runners are cool, dude. I think Shroud Runners have life again. I think they're one of the better units after the data slate changes. Like if you think about it, why weren't people running them before? Well, people were running devastating wounds a lot. They were running things like Night Spinners, and Night Spinners have dev wounds, and that just doesn't synergize. It actually is
But,
anti-synergy. You know?
so I know we've talked about kind of the bike list I've been working on. So a lot of that I'm looking at like the Shroud Runner lethal hits, and there's gonna
Yeah.
a ton of ignores cover. Well, it makes me want to run Dark Reapers really bad too, just because the ignores cover. 'Cause I feel like just having that kind of whole theme throughout your list, being able to ignore cover consistently is pretty
Yeah,
undervalued,
I think it's strong. I think it's something where a lot of
especially if you
players
can
take
tie
it
in
for
lethal
granted
hits with it.
nowadays. Yeah, they take it for granted. They say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna have a cover save." Well, against my list, you're not. It really throws people's math hammer off when they're trying to do their calculations revolving around what a unit can take when it goes onto an objective. Like, how many hits can this unit take before it dies, right? Like that's what people are thinking about, and they're usually accounting for cover as well. Like, oh, I'll get a cover save, so against most AP1 weapons, I'm still going to be saving on that 3 up. I'm still going to be saving on that 2 up, and it's like not against my army. Like you're going to
Right.
be saving on one worse, and that means more command point usage. You're going to have to spend your defensive command points much more frequently, which means less command points for things like command rerolls and stuff like that. Insane bravery tests. Like that could mean that's a big deal, Like that could really kind of avalanche into something that's, impossible for your opponent to stop. So that's a good idea. I think that's great. I think Wind Riders are better, obviously, now. Like,
Right.
you know, than they were before because of that. Shuriken cannons, I think, have more of a impact on games than previous.
And we're
I've
gonna
been
make Hail
trying
of
to
Doom
test
work.
that. Yeah, teamwork makes the dream
We're gonna
work.
make Hail of Doom work. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, you gotta fulfill every single color in the rainbow with the Eldar. That's how they are. It's not just one color, man. You need all the aspects involved. It's a team effort. Eldar are all about teamwork.
Right.
That's funny, man. All right, man. Well, let's talk again, dude. I think it would be cool to do another video like this on another, bonkers unit that,
Yeah, for
is
sure, dude. I had
nobody
a
likes.
blast. I had a blast. Yeah, exactly. That's my favorite part
Yeah,
about it. We can
next we
talk
can
about like
talk
a
about, I don't know,
ridiculous
what do you think is
combos,
next,
whatever.
dude? What do you think is the next unit no one likes? Howling Banshees? You talk about
Yeah,
Howling Banshees all day or some other thing
I'm
that people
down.
hate? For sure,
Yeah,
dude.
Howling Banshees are definitely hated. Um,
I feel like that's because people were like, it was like getting off a high with Howling Banshees, like, cause that's what they were. They were like a
I mean,
drug in like Ninth Edition. Like, oh, I gotta have my
Scorpions
Howling
are
Banshees.
loved. Scorpions are loved, but kind of hated right now. I feel,
Interesting. Yeah,
but
I mean,
it looks like people started using them again.
yeah, dude. Well, Infiltrate's a powerful tool, man. And then you got Devastating Wounds, and you have Condrus that's, kind of stepping up to the plate. So,
Right.
you have a lot of good combos there. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. We'll have to talk about an Eldar melee list. See if that can actually work this edition,
Oh
which would be
yeah,
kind of
well, yeah,
fun.
kind of like how we talked about before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, man. Well,
Yeah.
I'll leave you at that. Let you get some sleep because I know you're over here on the East Coast and it's probably
No, no, it's
really
yeah, it's
late
all
for you, dude.
yeah, no, it's
But
all good though.
I'll talk to you later, man. And
Yeah, dude, I'm
to
pumped.
everybody out
I'm
there,
sure you're gonna have this up by the time. Oh, you're still
well,
recording.
maybe. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm still recording. Oops, have to cut that.
My bad.
No, just kidding. Who cares? No, but yeah, I mean, I'll probably have this up within the next couple days. I mean, I'm just gonna kind of release it like this. I don't think there needs to be
Yeah,
much
we're
editing. I'd rather just have it raw. Like
yeah, nice and easy.
absolutely. All
All
right,
right, brother.
man.
You have a good night.
You too, man. Peace out.
Bye.